So Raghunath Das Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, one of the most prominent and important followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and one of the most important acharyas or teachers, major teachers in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. Sampradaya is a line of teachers and disciples. You could say it's a particular school of understanding the absolute truth, especially understanding the absolute truth as Krishna or Vishnu. So in our particular line, which comes from the creator of the universe, Lord Brahma, down through Madhva Acharya, and then to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his very prominent followers included Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami is often called the Acharya of the goal of life, the goal of Krishna consciousness. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami has written a number of books. This one we're going to look at today is just 12 verses called the Sri Manah-siksa, which is the splendid instructions to the mind. So we're going to go through this is just in 1 hour. All we're doing is an overview. We're just touching it. If you want to go more deeply, we have the book published on Amazon in 2 volumes. You can also get it as a Kindle book in 1 volume, and it is also available on YouTube and on my YouTube channel as an audiobook. So we've produced it with the commentary of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of our great contemporary acharyas. And we also have commentaries from a number of really contemporary modern members of ISKCON who've also written commentaries on Sri Manah-siksa. So this book is important because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it's a padati. Pada means step. Padati means that it gives us a step-by-step guide. So maybe sometimes we think, okay, what are the steps I need to take to advance in Krishna consciousness? I mean, we have Rupa Goswami's overview, Shraddha to Prema, but that doesn't tell us so clearly all the time exactly, well, what's the next step to take? So what we are trying to do today, our mission, our goal for today in studying this overview of the Sri Manah-siksa is to really meditate on where am I in this padati and what are the next steps that I could take. Maybe we can identify one step, one thing we can do, which may involve avoiding something, or it may involve accepting something. And it may involve some of each. So I'd like us to imagine for a moment that we can feel ourselves progressing in this step-by-step process of bhakti, that we are feeling ourselves becoming enlivened and enthused, letting go of our bad habits, letting go of our obstacles. I was just reading in the 4th canto, Prabhupada is saying how we create all of our own obstacles, letting go of our obstacles and really getting closer and closer to Krishna. So that is the vision that we want to keep of ourselves as we go through this padati. Now, this padati is not only important for our own spiritual life, but it is also very important for the good reputation and understanding of our sampradaya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that the most important aspect of bhakti is to develop spontaneous loving devotion for Krishna in Vrindavan. There are at least 2 ways of achieving that. One, which is what Bhaktivinoda called more external, and one that's more internal. The external path is much more subject to cheating, and it's much more difficult to follow. The internal path, you can't cheat at all, and it's much easier to follow. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in noticing that in his time, people were cheating on the external path, he taught the internal path that is this Sri Manah-siksa, of Raghunath Das Goswami. But people criticized him for not teaching the external path. So we don't have time today to get into this topic in depth. It's an important historical and philosophical topic. If this interests you, in the book, we have an entire chapter dedicated to this topic. But we will say briefly that this book, Sri Manah-siksa by Raghunath Das Goswami, it epitomizes the path that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada taught for attaining spontaneous love of God. So the Manah-siksa can be, it's just 12 verses. The 12th verse is the benedictory verse. So the essence of the work is in 11 verses. And it can be divided into these three sections, that verses 1 to 3 are the qualifications for this inner or internal path of attraction to Krishna in Vrindavan. Then verses 4 to 7 are about different obstacles, going subtler and deeper with each one, with the elimination of each one. And then 8 through 11 is about how to engage in our spiritual position. Now, we don't have time today to recite the verses, unfortunately. We're just going to go through an explanation of them. If you want to recite the verses, you can just find, of course, online, just a list of the 12 verses. If you want to go deeply, of course, then the book is available. Okay, so the first verse, the first 3 verses are again about initial qualification for taking up this inner attraction. And as we go through here again, I want us to focus on imagining that future self, and maybe we can access it to some extent during this class, where we know what is it that I have to do? What do I have to avoid, or what do I have to accept in order to really experience this moving forward in bhakti? It's something like right before giving this class, I had breakfast. And as I'm eating my breakfast, right, the 11th canto, it's saying, as we're eating, we feel pleasure. It was a very nice breakfast. It was idlis and badas with coconut chutney and fresh orange juice and pomegranate seeds. So I was feeling some pleasure. Also, my hunger was going away bite by bite, and I was feeling nourished and enlivened. So in the same way, we should be feeling that as we do the next step in our bhakti. So his first verse is about, interestingly enough, attachment. Raghunath Das Goswami starts his first verse by saying that we should have unprecedented and excessive attachment. Now, generally, we think of spiritual life as a process of detachment. But bhakti is achieving detachment through attachment. So I give this example quite a lot. Now, this cup has water in it, so I have to be careful I don't spill it. But let's imagine that this cup is full of one of these chemical fake juices, just water and sugar and food coloring, and maybe they put a drop of essence of flavor in it. So it's just garbage. It's really bad for you. And then you have this fresh juice, like I had this fresh squeezed orange juice today. So in other paths, in karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyan yoga, you first have to dump out your chemical juice, and then you have an empty cup. And then you have to try to pour in the other juice. Well, that's difficult because as you're pouring out all of your attachments, you feel empty. Yeah. And then once you get used to being empty, it's hard to get the good thing. What we do in bhakti, we take our cup full of our chemical juice and we start pouring in the good stuff. And as we start pouring in the good stuff, there starts to be an overflowing, right? And gradually the percentage changes, and pretty soon we have all real juice and we've never had to have an empty cup. So that is the param drisva nivartate. By substituting our attachment for Krishna, our attachment to lower things naturally decreases. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami is very clear about specifically where we should have this excessive, unprecedented attachment. The first thing is to guru, to our teachers, to those who initiate us into the process, to those who instruct us in the process, to anyone who helps us in our devotional path. We should have excessive, unprecedented. Unprecedented means it's not of the material world. Unprecedented means it's a spiritual attachment. And excessive and unprecedented attachment to Radha Krishna's feet as dear as life. This also means to the process of devotion, that we should become very attached to their lotus feet and the whole process of making advancement. By the way, this black and white drawing, in our book, we commissioned 120 new black and white drawings and 12 new oil paintings to illustrate the book. We want to have excessive attachment, excessive unprecedented attachment to the holy places. And this doesn't just mean Vrindavan, Mayapur Dham, Jagannath Puri. It also means a holy place that we may set up in our home. We have a shelf or an altar or something where we set up a holy place. We should be attached to that. We should take care of it. We should keep the holy places clean, well maintained. Take care of it just like if we have some prized possession, how nicely we take care of it. So in this way, we should take care of the holy places. And then we should have great attachment to the devotees. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur comments that there are 3 levels of devotees to whom we should have attachment. And different levels of devotees are described differently in different places, which we don't have time to describe today. If you want to go deeper, I have on YouTube videos of my giving more in-depth classes where, I give one class, like 3 classes to cover the whole Manah-siksa, and we recite all the verses and so forth. And there I talk about the different ways of understanding the levels of devotees. So his top level that Bhaktivinoda is explaining here are those who live in Vrindavan, either physically or most importantly, mentally. So not those who live physically, but not mentally, but those who live mentally in Vrindavan, and they may also live there physically. In other words, those who have their supreme goal of their spiritual life attaining Krishna in Vrindavan. Then the intermediate level of devotees to whom we should have attachment are those who may not have worship of Krishna in Vrindavan as their supreme goal, but they're in a genuine tradition, in any genuine tradition, and they're very devoted to the Lord, whether or not they reside in Vraja. And then the beginning level of devotee to whom we should have attachment are brahmanas who teach dedication of life and occupation to the Lord. So religious people who teach how to be a good, pious, religious person in the world. So we should have great attachment to all these levels of devotees. And then great attachment to our Diksha mantras. So those of us who've received Vaishnav Diksha, we are chanting the Brahma Gayatri, the Gopal mantra, the Kama Gayatri mantra, 2 Guru mantras, 2 Gora mantras. And we should have great attachment to these mantras, to really study what do they mean, to really meditate on what do they mean, and to be entering deeply into them. The Brahma Gayatri mantra is a very powerful mantra of enlivenment and enlightenment. And we should have great attachment to taking shelter of the primary names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we should have great attachment, not to chant mechanically. So this is the oil painting that we had commissioned for this verse, based on attachment to the holy places. This is a description of Nanda Maharaj's place from the Ananda Vrindavan Champu. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes the point that just having attachment is insufficient, that we also have to follow the practice and not think, well, I'll just have attachment, and if I'm lucky, I'll attain Krishna consciousness. And very importantly in this verse, and this statement in this verse by Raghunath Das Goswami is the key to the rest of the book, at least through text 8, and that is give up pride. Saradamban hitva, always give up pride. Now, you might say, well, we're just at first verse. This is a step-by-step guide. If I have to completely give up pride now, then here I'm stuck at verse 1. So no, we give up pride as far as we can in the beginning. And we become prepared to give up pride. Just like somebody may tell you, you're going to go on a toll road and you have to be prepared to pay the toll as you go forward. So we're going to prepare ourselves to give up deeper and deeper levels of pride as we go forward. Okay, the second verse, this is a verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes. He's asking him to give up dharma and adharma. He says, give up dharma and adharma. And we may say, well, how do I give up dharma and adharma? Everything is either dharma or adharma. It's pious or sinful. But if we look at Gita 4:17, we'll see that there's three kinds of action. Karma, which is equivalent to dharma, vikarma, which is equivalent to adharma, and akarma, which is freedom. This is a first level of giving up pride, because generally we have pride that I am a very pious person, I am a good person, I follow codes of religion, or one can have pride that I'm a bad person. I don't have to follow any rules. I'm a rebel. So people tend to have a pride of dharma or adharma. But when you give them both up, one has an identity that I am Krishna's servant. I may look like somebody acting in the world following the codes of dharma, but actually I'm Krishna's servant, something like a secret agent. You know, they have their cover occupation, they're a professor or whatever they are externally, but actually they're Krishna's agent. So we should always think like this. I am not a follower of dharma or adharma. I don't have any personal pride like that. I am simply the agent of Krishna. I just work for him, and I am here to sell his product of love of God. So Raghunath Das Goswami has already told us to have attachment to Guru, and here he explains that our attachment to Guru is seeing him as being very dear to Krishna, just like we sing in the Guru Vastika every morning, Kintu Prabhuya Priya Eva Tasya. We might notice that Raghunath Das Goswami did not say anything about Lord Chaitanya in the first verse, which is remarkable because Raghunath Das Goswami left his business and family to join Lord Chaitanya, and he was a very intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya through Swarup Damodar. So here in verse 2, he says, one should meditate on Lord Chaitanya, the son of Mother Sachi, as being non-different from Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. This is our painting for this verse, because in this verse, Raghunath Das Goswami has mentioned Nanda, Krishna, and Radharani. So this is an illustration of a particular pastime that takes place in Bandiravan. And you can read about it in the book. All right, in the third verse, Raghunath Das Goswami talks about pratijanur. Pratijanur means birth after birth. So this is a deeper level of giving up pride. Right? We gave up the pride of being, I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. You know, I'm a good person, or I'm a rebel. And we just accept the identity of Krishna's servant. But we might still be attached to liberation. Well, I'm Krishna's servant, and so I'm going to get liberated. So here Raghunath Das Goswami says, no, deeper pride is pratijana, birth after birth. And the picture we have here illustrating Rukmini waiting for a message from Krishna as to whether or not he's going to marry her. So Rukmini had written in her letter, if it were not possible in this lifetime to gain, this is how Prabhupada explains it, Krishna book, chapter 52. If it were not possible in this lifetime to gain Krishna's favor by these activities, she was prepared to die from such austerities and to undergo similar difficulties lifetime after lifetime. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that pure devotees of the Lord execute devotional service with great determination, dridhavrata. Such determination as exhibited by Rukmini Devi is the only price for purchasing Krishna's favor. So why is this a deeper level of humility? So let's think about a time when somebody has offended us or insulted us or betrayed us or hurt us. So that person who has offended or hurt us, they cannot demand being reinstated in the relationship at any particular time. They can't say, well, I've done this and I've done this and now you have to take me back, right? We decide when the relationship is restored, if we're the offended party. So we have offended Krishna and he gets to decide when he's going to let us back into his association. And that patience to wait for that, even lifetime after lifetime, is an important factor of our humility in understanding that we are the offenders. Next, in verse 3, Raghunath Das Goswami says that we should be following Rupa and Sanatan and Swarup Damodar. And we've also added Raghunath Das Goswami himself in this illustration. And particularly, we follow them through reading their books, which are like showering jewels upon us, that we're not going to attain to these higher levels of Krishna consciousness without following Rupa, Sanatan, Swarup Damodar, and Raghunath Das Goswami. And we note that Srila Prabhupada in his books and his lectures, when we read Srila Prabhupada's books and lectures, and then we look at the works of the acharyas like Rupa and Sanatan and Swarup Damodar, we can see that Srila Prabhupada is following strictly in their line. So it's very important that in following a spiritual path, one doesn't just make something up. One doesn't say, well, I'm going to make up my own path. I'm going to make up my own way. No, one has to actually follow the instructions of the Lord himself and the great teachers. And in doing that, there's the awakening of raga. Raga means not just attachment to Krishna, but attachment to Krishna in some particular way. So this is our painting for this verse. And in this verse, you can see all of the 5 primary ways of relating to Krishna. One can relate to Krishna in neutrality, like the trees and the cows. One can relate to Krishna as one's master. We have Raktak and Patrak here, Krishna's servants. One can relate to Krishna as one's friend. We have Sridham and Subal and Ujjvala here. One can relate to Krishna as one's child. We have Nanda, Yasoda, and Rohini here. One can relate to Krishna as one's beloved, and we have Radharani and Chandravali. So these are the chief exemplars of these different types of relationship with the Lord. So generally at this point in the padati, at this point in the process, one at least starts to have some awakening, not intellectually, but in terms of one's feelings and desires, to love Krishna in a particular way. So some of you may be saying, well, that I have no idea how I love Krishna. I haven't had any inkling of any awakening. So maybe I'm stuck here at verse 3. But if you even would like to have that, so that is a qualification for going forward. So this concept of having a particular relationship with the Lord is one of the glorious teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In most of the religions of the world, there's talk about love of God, but love of God in a very general way, or maybe love of God like one loves one's parents. But we find that all the relationships that exist in this world have their perfection in our relationship with the Lord. In this world, these relationships can be problematic, and they all end at death. And then we go into another body and another set of relationships. But when we have these relationships with the Lord, they are natural and eternal. All right, so that's the first section, the basic qualification for going on this path, but increasing levels of qualification. And now we're going to be going deeper and deeper into getting rid of our pride. And again, as we do this, let's meditate on that vision of our future self. Maybe that can happen while we're in this class. That I know, what step do I have to take? What's the next step? What do I have to avoid? What do I have to accept? And one might be thinking of that already with the verses that we've gone through, the first 3 verses. Maybe there's something there. Maybe I need to increase my attachment to my Diksha mantras. Maybe I need to increase my attachment to the holy name. Maybe I have to stop my identification as a dharmic or adharmic person of this world. But still, even if that's the case, we're going to find how we can go deeper and deeper to give up our pride. All right, so first, we're going to look at pride in speech. How our speech is the key to spiritual wealth or poverty. So Raghunath Das Goswami uses metaphors throughout these verses 4, 5, 6, and 7. So his first metaphor is that of a prostitute. And he says, if you talk about mundane things, then your speech will become like a prostitute. So a prostitute pretends that she loves somebody and she cares about them and she's going to give them a good time. But actually, all she's interested in is their money. So mundane speech is like that. It seems like it's going to give us happiness. It seems like it's going to fulfill our desires, but it steals the wealth of bhakti from our heart. And we know that a person who sees a prostitute, they generally, they lose their family, they lose their job, they lose their money, they lose their reputation, they may lose their health. And when all that's gone, the prostitute is gone as well. Now, of course, in this world, we may have to talk about some things of this world for practical purposes, hey, honey, did you put gas in the car yesterday? I mean, it's not that we never have to talk about things in the world, but we shouldn't be absorbed with hearing and speaking about mundane things in order to try to enjoy some kind of taste from them. And what about talking about liberation? So I was just reading in the instructions of the 4 Kumaras to Maharaj Prithu and Prabhupada's purport that we should always be focused on liberation. However, if we're talking about impersonal liberation, if we're talking about losing ourselves and merging into the Lord, that kind of talk acts like a tigress who's going to not just steal our wealth, but eat us. Now, such is even the case if we're saying, like this world is so terrible, Kali Yuga is miserable, and I'm suffering so much. Let me just get out of here. So why does that act like a tigress? Now, it's a fact that love of anyone is predicated on freedom. Love can only exist where there's freedom. That's a fact. So wanting freedom in order to love is fine. But love also binds us voluntarily out of freedom to that living being that we love. This is why in the traditional wedding ceremonies, right, they take the cloth and they tie the cloth together, right? And even in the West, they say that when getting married is tying the knot. You bind yourself to somebody, right? So focusing just on freedom doesn't allow for a commitment of love. And because the self is loving, it actually destroys the self. Not literally, but as if the self was destroyed. The self can never be destroyed, but as if the real nature of the self is destroyed. Then Raghunath Das Goswami says something very interesting regarding speech, that we shouldn't be talking about or hearing about loving Lord Narayana, the husband of the goddess of fortune. Now, there are devotees who will have a natural proclivity to Lord Narayan, but Raghunath Das Goswami's Manah-siksa is definitely aimed at the form of Krishna as the beloved cowherd boy in Vrindavana. But there's also a very important point here by Raghunath Das Goswami talking about the Lord as Lakshmipati, or the husband of the goddess of fortune. So I have a friend who told me many years ago, he said, Urmila, I like to have rich friends. I said, oh, why is that? And he said, well, when they have a birthday party for their kids, my kids get to go. And then they have clowns and magicians and bouncy castles. And then, they have a yacht. And then, my wife and I get to go on the yacht too. In other words, if I have rich friends, I also get to enjoy some of the benefits of their wealth. So one should be careful that we don't have attachment to the Lord in the sense of wanting to enjoy his wealth with him in love, right? My friend didn't want to steal his friend's wealth. He wanted to enjoy it with his friends in friendship, but still, it's not fully pure. And such a mentality is going to make it very difficult to enter Vrindavan. So to give up mundane speech that's like a prostitute, to give up talks of liberation, which are like a tigress, and even to give up talking about, hearing about, enjoying the opulence of the Lord. So what is the cure for this problem? What's the cure for the prostitute, the tigress? The cure is to be absorbed in a jewel of service. And Raghunath Goswami says the jewel of service of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. In other words, we should use our speech, our sound, what we hear, what we say, in service. And to understand how to do this, I like to turn to the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna explains the 5 austerities of speech in Sattva Gun. Truthful, pleasing content, language that's not agitating, beneficial, and based on the Vedas. Of these 5, the most important is beneficial. If I speak truth that hurts somebody, that's not truth in service. Better to be silent. If the truth's going to hurt somebody, better to be silent. Our speech should be beneficial. Again, I was just reading and preparing for some classes about Prithu Maharaj and the 4 Kumaras, and how when King Prithu asked the 4 Kumaras about spirituality, they're both benefited. He asked questions not only to get his own curiosity satisfied, but also to enliven the Kumaras. So our speech and what we hear, what we say, should be spiritually enlivening to us and others. And if we focus on that, then we will not have any danger from the prostitute, the tigress, or even attachment to the Lord's wealth. All right, so let's say now that we have this great attachment to guru, holy places, devotees, right? We've given up the pride of being a pious person or a rebel. We're patient life after life. We're following Rupa Sanatan. Maybe we've had an awakening of our way we want to love Krishna. And we have this jewel of beneficial speech in service. Now we're going to go to the 5th verse, which is about the pride of action. The pride of action. This is where one thinks that as long as my speaking is beneficial in service, I can do whatever I want. And here Raghunath Das Goswami gives us an example of highway robbers. So this class is coming from Central New Jersey. I mean, I don't think in Central Jersey we have really highway robbers. I don't think it's like a thing. I've been to places in South Africa where you really don't want to drive around at night because at the traffic light, people will stop you and steal your car, maybe kill you. And there are certain roads in India where I'm told not to go at night. So there's still some places where there's highway robbers. So these highway robbers are lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, and madness. And the ropes that they have are the ropes made out of actions. These are actions which are contrary to our ideals. So we're speaking about high-level things. We've given up pride of speech, but our ideals are not in line with our actions. And it's as if our lust, our anger, our greed, it's as if they've taken the ropes of these actions and they've bound us around the neck and they're pulling us around. So Arjuna asked this question in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Why is it that I do things that I know are wrong as if I'm being forced? And Krishna says, it's your own lust. What happens is that we think that our lust, our anger, our greed, our envy are going to do something good for us. People talk about righteous anger. Or, I'm motivated in my work by my greed, or I take care of my family because of my lust. And people think they need these things to motivate them to do good things. But by taking shelter of lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, etc., we end up being dragged to do things like a person pulls around a dog that we really don't want to do. And analogy here is that of a cheating crane. So a crane is standing on one leg, eyes closed, as if in meditation, like a very great yogi. Until the crane sees a fish, and then eating the fish, and then back to meditation. So this is a hypocrite. Very spiritual until there's some facility for sense gratification. So Krishna killed a shape-shifting wizard who had taken the form of a crane, Bakasura. And so Raghunath Das Goswami says that if we want to be free of our lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, madness, that is pulling us around to do things that we ourselves know are wrong. No, I don't want to watch that. And we're watching it. No, I don't want to eat it. And we're eating it. I don't want to do that. And we're doing it. That we have to take shelter of the devotees of the killer of the cheating crane. And Bhaktivinoda particularly mentions Arjuna, Bhishma, and Narada, very famous persons in the Shastra. In other words, we want to take shelter of people who, by being the servants of the killer of hypocrisy, are themselves free of hypocrisy. And we call out to them, help! I'm being killed by my own lust, by my own greed. Just like people who have some problem with substance addiction, alcohol, narcotics, whatever, they go to some group and they say, yes, I'm a victim of my addiction. I thought this addiction would give me pleasure and it has simply made me a slave. And then they get some helper, they get some sponsor that they can call and say, I feel like I want to drink. Yeah. So this principle operates in spiritual life, where by calling for help from the devotees who themselves are free from hypocrisy, we can become free from hypocrisy. All right. So now we have this jewel of service, giving up the pride of mundane speech, and we have the help of the great warriors on the path, driving away the highway robbers of hypocritical action. Now we're going to go to the pride of the mind. So the highway robbers, they're dead on the path, the shining path, Raghunath Das Goswami says, of love of God. And we're thinking at this point in the Padati, a person may easily think that everything's cool now. They have it all together. I mean, I've got attachment to Guru, to the holy name, to my mantras, to the holy places, to the devotees, following the process, patiently, I'm not identifying as a pious or impious person in the world, following the great acharyas, worshiping Lord Chaitanya as Krishna and Guru as the friend of the Lord. I'm patient life after life, right? Speak beneficially about spirituality, and my actions are all pakka, they are all first class. I don't do anything wrong. That's it. But Raghunath Das Goswami says, really? Oh yeah, I'm getting clean, I'm getting purified. He says, are you sure? He says, look up and see, what's your shower head? Maybe instead of purifying water, it's the burning urine from a very big donkey. Now, the main symptom that one has this pride of mind is this word burning. If in the heart, instead of feeling joy and peace, if we feel a burning in our heart, then we have this problem. Now, this is where, look, with speech, it's obvious. It's obvious to others. If we're speaking mundane speech, everybody can tell, right? With actions, hypocritical actions, it's at least obvious to ourselves. Maybe we're hiding it from others, but we know, I shouldn't be watching this. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be eating this. We know that. With this burning donkey urine, it's not obvious to ourselves at all, and it may not even be obvious to others. It's very subtle. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a number of specific examples, and I'm just including a few of them here. And one of them is meditating on materialistic things while engaged in the external processes. So you're chanting Hare Krishna, but you're thinking, oh, you know, I want to be like that person who has a lot of money, or look at that pretty girl walking by, or, you know, our mind is dwelling on this. I was, again, just reading in Bhagavatam, chapter 22 of the fourth canto, where it was explained that if our mind's absorbed in materialistic thought, then even though we say we want Krishna consciousness, we won't achieve it. We'll be creating our own obstacles. So we, you know, our behavior may be great, our speech may be great, we may have those attachments to Guru and the holy name and so forth. But if our mind's full of materialistic things while we're in the process, that's another kind of pride, actually, isn't it? It's a pride of the mind. Yeah. Another example Bhaktivinoda gives is where we're preaching just to attract the opposite sex. And we see this. We've seen this among our ISKCON devotees. We see it in every religion, where people are presenting themselves as a big scholar, as a big preacher, as a saintly person, just to attract others, usually the opposite sex. Another example Bhaktivinoda gives is when we neglect our spiritual practices in order to get money from wealthy materialistic people. And this can be institutionalized. I mean, I've seen, you know, leaders tell people, oh, you know, it's all right if you don't have time to chant your rounds. You need to go out and collect donations for our new temple and things like that. You know, you can neglect your Shastra study and so forth. So thinking that because I'm collecting money for Krishna service, I can neglect my spiritual life. Again, these are just some examples. Bhaktivinoda gives many more than we're showing today. Another example, this is an interesting one, is in this picture, in the very front part, you see that there's a little box here. And so when I teach this live, I always ask people what they think is in the box. So those are hearts. You see 3 hearts here. And we see these devotees that they're in the process of bhakti, but their hearts are locked up. They're not willing to give Krishna their emotions. They're working just on a philosophical platform. So this is another way where one thinks that one's doing bhakti, but one actually isn't. So all of these donkey urine problems, they're all ways in which we think we're doing bhakti, we're fooling ourselves. And actually our motives are different. So what's the cure for this? Raghunath Das Goswami says, we have to bathe our mind in the ocean of love. Now, because this is a kind of hypocrisy that we're not aware of ourselves. And my personal experience from counseling thousands of devotees in, thousands of cities for decades is that this one is really the bugaboo. This is where people get stuck, where we don't see our own motives honestly. And we actually can't. You can't sit down and say, well, I'm just going to think about it. Because this is a pride of the mind is not able to see it. The mind is not able to see its own problem, like the eyes can't see themselves. We have to have someone else show it to us. And Raghunath Das Goswami is here saying that someone needs to be God, that this ocean of love is at the feet of Gandharvika Giridhari. So I understand this, that we go to Krishna, we say, please show us my inner hypocrisy. Please show us yourself and my attachment so I can choose wisely. All right, so let's say we've conquered that. We have the jewel of speech. We have the protectors from the highway robbers. And we're bathing our mind in the ocean of love. Raghunath Das Goswami says we may have pride in the heart. This is the most subtle. And here's metaphor, here is a dead dog. The dead dog represents fame. So we don't have any problem with dead dogs, but we have a problem if you want to eat a dead dog. So he gives an example of a wild, disloyal woman who wants to eat this dead dog. This is the desire for fame. Raghunath Das Goswami says, as long as the unchaste dog-eating woman who is the desire for prestige, dances in my heart. How can the chaste and pure lady of love for Krishna touch my heart? So we have the chaste, pure ladies of love in the background, and they don't want to go in where this lady with the dead dog is. And Bhaktivinoda says that she has a lover who is deceit. When we want to be honored, we will not be honest, because if people really know what we're like, they're not going to honor us. So we become deceitful. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that we may want to be honored for being kind, for being religious, for being sinless, for being a devotee, for knowing spiritual subjects, for being detached, for being spotless and renounced, for being a master of the Shastra conclusions, for having a perfect understanding of devotion. And I remember a devotee saying this to me, "Oh, Urmila, I am the only one who understands all about the different rasas of devotion." And I thought, oh, that's the dancing lady wanting to eat the dead dog. So what's the cure? The cure here is to serve the generals in Lord Chaitanya's army. They can send out this desire for fame. When we take the role of a servant of those who are actually worthy of fame for being great devotees, then this desire leaves our heart, and the chaste lady of love enters our heart, which becomes like a clean and beautiful city. All right, at this point, we are free from the pride of speech, of hypocritical behavior, of a hypocritical mind, and of a desire to be worshipped and revered as a great devotee. Now, Saradam Vanhitva, we have actually given up all pride. And we come to the 8th verse, where Raghunath Das Goswami says, although I am wretched and a cheater, I'm dirty, still the Lord's mercy can drive away my wicked nature. The Lord's mercy can have a flower grow, even though I am so dirty. There's no more pride. And all of these different aspects of pride may seem like a huge ocean, may seem like the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. But as the demigods say in chapter 2 of the 10th canto, and Lord Brahma says in chapter 14, if I take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, then this huge ocean of pride and difficulty shrinks, boom, into a little puddle. So this is what Raghunath Das Goswami asks in humility. Please, with your mercy, remove my wicked, cheating nature. That's his first request. By your mercy, shrink this ocean into a puddle of all my problems, all my obstacles. Next thing he asks for, give me glowing nectar to drink. In other words, illuminate my heart with my real identity as a soul, my real relationship with the Lord. And the third thing he asks for is, please give me the service of Gandharva, of Srimati Radharani. Let me be under the shelter of your spiritual energy. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha. So once pride is vanquished, there are these 3 requests. Please, with your mercy, drive away my ocean of wickedness. Give me the glowing nectar of revelation of my real self, and put me under the shelter of your spiritual energy. Now, the rest of we go on now to the last section of the Manah-siksa. What does a person do now? We personalists, we don't say that after liberation, you just kind of float in the nothingness. So Raghunath Das Goswami says, what should we do in terms of our internal meditation? He said, well, in this state now, we meditate on Krishna as the moon of the Vrindavan forest, Radharani as as the Lord of Srimati Radharani, his dearmost, and then Lalita as the confidential friend, Vishaka as the guru. Now, this particular meditation is Raghunath Das Goswami's own meditation because of his own relationship with the Lord. So if one has a relationship with the Lord, that the Lord is one's child, one's meditation will be different. But as one comes into these higher realms of bhakti, one meditates on the Lord along with the associates of the Lord that are particularly dear to one in one's relationship. Of course, at the same time, this meditation on Krishna can be done even by the beginners. We have so many temples in ISKCON where we have Radha Krishna deities. We may have deities of Radha Krishna with Lalita and Vishaka. So even if it's your first hour of contact with Krishna consciousness, you can still meditate on Radha Krishna, Lalita, and Vishaka, although obviously it will be in a rather immature way, but that can be done even from the beginning. Then Raghunath Das Goswami, his personal meditation is especially on Srimati Radharani. And he has in this next verse about how Radharani outshines Rati, the wife of Cupid, and Gauri, the wife of Lord Shiva, and Leela, the potency of Lord Vishnu. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has many verses glorifying Srimati Radharani in this commentary. For example, that she is the moonlight of bliss for the white lotuses, and that she defeats all of Krishna's other consorts. So here, this particular painting is of Krishna returning to the Ras Leela dance. And this is the first time that this particular pastime from the Bhagavatam has been illustrated. And these different gopis there are just as described in those Bhagavatam verses. All right, so Raghunath Das Goswami has talked about that having become free from pride, what do we meditate on? And now he's going to say, what do we do? Now, again, although he's giving this in the Padati as what one would do after being free from pride, these are things that can be done, again, even by the beginner. So they are worship, glorification, meditation, hearing divine pastimes, and offering obeisances. And stay on mute, but please say this with me. Worship, glorification, meditation, hearing divine pastimes, offering obeisances. Again, worship, glorification, meditation, hearing divine pastimes, offering obeisances. Again, worship, glorification, meditation, hearing divine pastimes, and offering obeisances. And he says we should do this every day as if we're drinking nectar. In other words, not mechanically. And when I teach this live with more time, I ask people, what other metaphors could we use besides nectar drinking? 5 different kinds of nectar, could be 5 different kinds of ice cream, or 5 different kinds of flowers, or 5 different kinds of perfume, or 5 good friends. Or in other words, we should do these daily with love, with enthusiasm. And when we're thinking again about what are we going to do to advance, to achieve that self we want to achieve, are there some of these that I could really add to my life? Am I worshiping every day like drinking nectar? Am I glorifying every day like drinking nectar? Am I meditating on the Lord every day like drinking nectar? Am I hearing divine pastimes every day like drinking nectar? And am I offering obeisances every day like drinking nectar? We're going to just briefly look at the stages of meditation that Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in his commentary on this verse. Srila Prabhupada describes this in his purport to Nectar of Instruction, text 8. So the first stage of meditation is hearing. So this is my metaphor now. We're going to compare hearing to pouring milk into a pot. We're hearing about Krishna. Second stage of meditation, I'm comparing it here to lighting the fire under the milk. Third stage of meditation is when the milk starts to boil over. And this has 5 subparts. So this first stage, hearing, like pouring the milk into the pot. The next stage, accepting, when you're really starting to internalize what you're meditating on. It's like you've turned on the fire under the milk. The third stage is where you're really meditating. This is where the milk is starting to cook. But this has 5 subparts. first subpart is called interrupted meditation. You stir your milk, and then you cut up your carrots, and you stir your milk, and you wash your beans, and you stir your milk, and you answer the phone. So you're meditating, you're interrupted, meditating, interrupted. Second part of stage 3 is uninterrupted. You're stirring the milk all the time, right? But you still might be distracted. Third part of stage 3, it gets thick. You really start getting deeper into your meditation that you're doing without interrupted. Fourth part of third stage, it starts to expand. Your meditation goes out of your meditation time into your life. Fifth part of the third stage of meditation is samadhi. It's finished cooking. But this is all on the platform of the mind. So the fourth stage of meditation, you can think of adding sugar to this milk. This is when Krishna actually comes and reveals himself in the heart. Jiva Goswami says the Lord enters the heart, being attracted by the meditation of our mind. And the fifth stage is Burfi, where we actually see the Lord face to face. So Raghunath Das Goswami, in addition to talking about the 5 nectars every day, right? What were they? Worshiping, glorification, meditation, hearing divine pastimes, and offering obeisances. He also says that one should worship Govardhan. So this is a photograph of a rock from Govardhan Hill, Govardhan Shila, that Lord Chaitanya personally gave to Raghunath Das Goswami. And we have this on the cover of our book. And so Raghunath Das Goswami himself was always engaged in worshiping Govardhan. So that's basically the end of Manah-siksa. And then we have the last verse, which is the verse of benediction, that anyone who recites these verses in a sweet voice will attain the service of Radha and Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. So I hope you've enjoyed this journey through the splendid instructions to the mind by Raghunath Das Goswami. And of course, Srila Prabhupada has given us the teachings of the Acharyas, Rupa Raghunath, through his own books. And if you'd like to purchase our edition of Manah-siksa, it is available on Amazon, print and Kindle, and then audio is on YouTube. That's free. So we have now.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Wonderful detailed explanation of each of those 12 verses. Let's see if anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Yes, I hope that all of you thought about what you could do. That was our mission here. What could I do? What could I avoid? What could I accept that would help me to go further on the path? All right. Yes. So we have, are you going to call some people and highlight them, Prabhu?
Yes, Amritam, go ahead.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisance. All Krish to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Your class format is very enlivening, so simple to understand, such a deep philosophy. I especially like that example of the boiling milk. Thank you. Mataji, in my temple, we have a service of doing Sunday school. So my class has children between the age of 9 to 11. And currently, we are teaching them Vaishnav etiquette, how to behave with others, your peers, your parents, teachers, so on and so forth. So I see a lot of parallels in this Manah-siksa. And it also happens that the current topic is how we can control the mind. Mm-hmm. So for a child who's between 9 and 11, and it's a mix of boys and girls, how you can control the mind. Now, it may be a thing like playing a video game or eating a chocolate, whatever it may be. So simple instruction is the more you tell the mind no to the mind, the stronger it can get whenever these desires come. So you rule the mind. Mataji, I'm trying to understand from you, since you also are an educator, is I can understand what you just presented, because I hope I'm saying this with humility. I'm an adult and my intellect is a little more developed. So if I were to translate these to my kids, what would be the medium? How do is it through storytelling? Is this through activities?
Well, you're really asking a question that deserves a week-long seminar to answer it, isn't it? Right?
Yes, Mataji.
I have other seminars available on teaching methods, and I have the book Vaikuntha Children, which is a free download on my website of all different teaching methods. Also in the festival books on my website, which are also free downloads, I go into Bloom's taxonomy and the Gardner's 7 intelligences. There's a matrix there of giving you different activities for teaching. And that's good not only for children, but also for adults. And we have samples in the festival books. We have, I think, 5 or 6 festival books of all different kinds of activities. So if you want to look at the learning experiences, we have both the theory and a lot of examples of the learning experiences. So I would say, and I hope this is of interest to other people, I don't want to get too much into this, but to any of you who are teaching anything, the first thing that you want to do with any lesson that you're teaching is decide what is the mission you want people to accomplish. And that has 5 areas: be, do, have, avoid, accept. And the way I remember it is be is related to sattva, do to rajas, have to tamas, and avoid and accept is related to all of those. That's how I remember them. So what do you want your students to be or do or have or avoid or accept? These should be measurable. I'm sure you've heard of SMART goals. They should be measurable. Your students should know when they have achieved them. And then you want to do something I did in today's class, this future self, where your students imagine that once they have achieved this mission, which is often in educational parlance called your learning objectives, what will they be? What will they be doing? How will they be? What will they be having? How will they feel? How will it manifest? They should be able to have a clear mission and a clear mission accomplished. Once you figure that out, then you can match particular learning activities to that mission and that mission accomplished, which is, again, a much greater level of depth is needed than I have in the next few minutes to go into that. What are the proper learning activities? But I would suggest that you look in Vaikuntha Children and in my festival books, especially at the end, you'll see that matrix between Bloom and Gardner, and you can, print that out. What we do for our teachers here at the Sunday School and the BKG Academy, we have that printed out, and we ask teachers to find learning activities in all of the squares, not just some of them. I would also like to humbly suggest that you're just saying no to the mind. The problem is that saying no to the mind can often lead to, in my experience, rebellion. So like Prabhupada said about with raising the children, don't bring too many no's. And I'm aware for myself that if people just tell me no, it sparks my rebellion. I'm like, who are you to tell me no? So sometimes if we tell our mind no, the mind's like, what do you mean no? I'm going to do whatever I want. And so Prabhupada talks about ignoring the mind. Because no can also lead to an aversion. And just like attachment and aversion. And I would really suggest Bhagavad Gita text 262 and 63 is about the gradual fall down from the mind, and 64 is the cure. So I would suggest looking at 264 for the cure, to be free from attachment and aversion, to regulate the senses, and then one gets the mercy of the Lord, which is very much connected to Manah-siksa. In Manah-siksa, we're seeing this freedom from attachment and aversion, like the freedom from dharma and adharma in text 2. We're seeing getting the mercy. Each of these steps, we're getting mercy from the Lord or from the devotees. So that's not a complete comprehensive answer, and I apologize for that because of the time constraints. But I hopefully have directed you to go a little further in this.
Thank you, Mataji.
I hope this was at least moderately helpful.
Yes, Mataji, definitely. And I'm thinking you mentioned about these seminars. Do you do it online or is it in person?
Well, I have a lot of recorded seminars. So I have hundreds of classes on ISKCON Desire Tree and dozens on YouTube. And some of them are specifically about teaching. Plus, then I have a lot of free materials, downloadable free materials on urmiladasi.org. But I would particularly refer you, as far as teaching, to the to Vaikuntha children and to the festival books. I mean,
Okay.
I also pre-COVID, BC, before COVID, I used to travel extensively physically, and I'm probably going to be doing that again pretty soon. But most likely our world is going to be now a hybrid of in-person and online. I would assume that's going to be continuing for quite some time.
Thank you so much,
Is
Mataji.
that okay? All right.
Yes, Mataji, thank you very much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
We can take another maybe couple questions. Prabhu, you want to call on someone?
Govindranandri Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Urmila Mataji, thank you. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Not a question, but just a comment. I just wanted to profusely thank you from the bottom of my heart for creating this super excellent work. I bought the book probably right after the publishing, so I benefited a lot, especially with the picture illustrations that you have given, and it becomes so easy to understand and to go deeper into the pictures and relate it to the meaning and the verses. So I also looked at it as a process of Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. I don't know if it's right, but that's how I saw that. Yeah. And just very curious how many years you took for this whole idea to come into actually in the form of a book, because I benefited so much from that.
Well, from actually starting the book to finishing took 3 years. And the fact that we were able to have those pictures is by the grace of Mahalakshmi, who's here on the call, who provided the financing for those. It's not cheap to hire artists to do all of that. But the initial, I'm not sure exactly how many years it was. It started with a seminar I attended at the Govardhan retreat by Sachinandan Maharaj, where he had prepared a seminar based on Manah-siksa. He taught the first verse, and then he said, I'm not happy with what I taught. This didn't work. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I don't know what's going on. And he said, let's have a break, and all of you pray to Govardhan to help me. So I went with this one devotee, Devi, a Radhanath Swami disciple, and we were walking down by Govardhan, and we were sitting by Govardhan, and we had the 12 verses in front of us, and we were just praying and praying and praying to Govardhan. And then there it was, the whole structure, the whole everything, just, it became clear. So then we raced back to the retreat and, took what we had written down and showed it to Sachinandan Maharaj. And he said, yes, this is it. This is it. You've understood it. He said, get a good translation made, because there wasn't really any at the time. The only translation that existed was more like a summary study, and you really couldn't, the verses weren't literally translated, and Bhaktivinoda's commentary was woven in with the realizations of the translator. So he said, go do it. And I'm like, I just felt completely unqualified. I said, I can't, no, forget it. I just kind of put it off to the side. And it was, I don't know, maybe a year or so later that a very good friend of mine, Srimati in Vrindavan, who lives in Vrindavan, we were talking about something else, and out of nowhere, she said, Urmila, you have to arrange to get a good translation done of Raghunath Das Goswami's Manah-siksa. And again, I was like, no, why? Yeah, I don't know. And so then I thought, well, maybe the way I would do it is I would take the metaphors and I would make them into a story. I would take Manah-siksa and make it into a metaphorical story, a journey. So I started planning that. And as I started planning that and working on it, I was like, I need to study Manah-siksa more in depth before I can do that. I'm putting the cart before the horse. So then I really went deeply into it and, engaged the translators and the artists and got the contemporary devotees commentary and so forth. And as I said, that was 3 years to get all the artwork, to all the commentary, to do all the editing and so forth. And about a year into that journey, I met with Devi Swami in Australia about publishing it. And he said, well, maybe the BBT will publish it, but only if you write a chapter on the controversy surrounding spontaneous devotion and Bhakti Siddhanta. And again, I was like, me, And then finally, I did it. I said, okay, I did it. And then I asked Devi Swami, I said, okay, I did it. He said, no, publish it yourself. It'll be faster. So that's how that chapter came to be written. Anyway, after I finished that, then I returned to the story form. And I produced the book Essence Seekers, which is a novel, which is also available on Amazon, print, Kindle, and audiobook. And Essence Seekers, it's in 4 parts. And the 4th part of Essence Seekers is Raghunath Das Goswami's Manah-siksa, but in a story form. The 3rd part is from Lord Chaitanya's discussion with Sanatana Goswami about the astrologer Sarvagya. And the first 2 parts are from Jud Bharat talking to Maharaj Rahugana. So I put all those metaphorical things together and put it into Essence Seekers. And Mahalakshmi and her team have translated that also into Spanish. So it's available English and Spanish as print and Kindle, and English also as audio. So that's the whole history. And now I'm trying to live.
That's so
working on
amazing.
On verse
Excellent
1,
work.
working on the first word of verse 1 and the first few one, and trying to live it. I guess we could just have Mahalakshmi and then that's it.
Yes.
It is,
Thank you.
yes, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. It's actually Ganga Devi's question.
Oh, okay, Ganga Devi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I really love your book from the time Mahalakshmi gave to me, and I have been looking at it quite frequently. And it really inspires me, and I should like to follow what you said, what you inspire us also today in the class. But if you have something to advise me, because the situation in the temple is always so demanding with the service, so much service, and always giving to the people and the people who comes. And so I don't find the peace of mind to really meditate on these deep things. I chant the japa, I hear the classes, but to go so deep like you present, it's like hard to find the situation and the time. And at the same time, the service is Prabhupada's temple.
Well, I would give you 2 suggestions for that. First of all, running around being busy and meditation are not in opposition to each other. Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to the 2nd verse of the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that even when one is cooking for the Lord or when one is going to the market to purchase things for the Lord, one is in samadhi. So that's not, that's not the kind of samadhi where, like Shamakarishi sort of samadhi, but it's a samadhi of absorption. Yes?
Yes.
So like, let's say that you knew you were going to fly to India in 3 days. So you might be cooking in the kitchen, but you're thinking about your trip. Or let's say, someone you love is going to visit you tomorrow morning. And again, you're cooking in the kitchen, but you're thinking about that person. So while we're busy with so many things, we can be meditating on Krishna. But we also have to take some time just to be with Krishna. We sometimes have to say, no, my own oxygen mask has got to be on first. Ultimately, I'm going to have to fly my own plane. And I better make sure that I have saved some time and some energy to practice my own plane flying. So thank you very much. Raghunath Das Swami ki.
One more is that, Mataji. Last one.
Oh, one more. You're going to give me one more.
Yeah. Sudhakar Prabhu is asking, Dhanavad Pranam IGSP. When we do japa, I understand we have to hear the holy name. My question is that what role mind plays during japa? Should one's goal is not to have any role for mind, which can only operate on memory during japa?
Now you're asking me for a whole other seminar. Seriously. Now you're asking me for a whole other seminar. Let me find something for you. 1 minute. I'm just going to find it and then share my screen. This is a nice thing about giving online classes. You can just find it on your computer and share your screen. All right. Give me a moment here. Okay, so let's see what Srila Prabhupada says about this. So this is practice. First of all, think of the deity. This is from Nairobi, 1975. First of all, think of the lotus feet, then the knees, then the eyes, then the belly, then the chest. In this way, as you become practiced, then go further, advance. In this way, when you become fully practiced, then automatically, in whatever condition you are, you will be able to meditate on Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. Satatam kirtayam tomam, satatam chintayam tomam. If you always think of Krishna, always chant. Chanting is also meditation. As soon as you chant, you immediately remember Krishna, his form, his name, his quality, his pastimes. So where is the difficulty? Gita 8.8 purport, yoga practice is meditation on the super soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. The mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. Letter 1967. While chanting Hare Krishna, you should always feel the presence of Krishna in person. And as soon as you remember Krishna in person, you can remember also about his talks with Arjuna. If you cannot remember Krishna in person, you should try to hear attentively the word Krishna Hare as you go on chanting. This is from Geneva Talk, 1974. Hare Krishna mantra chanting means keeping Krishna always within your heart. It is not expensive at all. You haven't got to make a very exalted throne for Krishna. You can imagine, note that word, that in my heart I have placed now a very diamond throne and Krishna is sitting. That is accepted. It is, actually becomes. Even within the mind, you think that I have kept one diamond throne, very costly throne, because Krishna is coming. He will sit down here. That is not false. That is a fact. So you create such situation within your heart. Now Krishna is seated. Let me wash his feet with the Ganges water, Yamuna water. Now change his dress to a first-class costly garments. Then I decorate with ornaments. Then I give him for eating. You can simply think of this. This is meditation. Swanta stena gadabrita. It is so nice thing. Anywhere you can sit down and think that Krishna is sitting in your heart and you are receiving in so nice way. They are not false. They are also fact. It is so easy. So here is if you simply carry Krishna within your heart, always in a very devotional service, exalted devotional service, and chant Hare Krishna and think of Krishna, wherever you go, you will purify the whole place. Remember, this whole thing started with the Hare Krishna mantra chanting means. All right. And this one from 1967. Please note, 1967 in San Francisco. Not for very advanced devotees, 1967. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna, immediately you remember Krishna. Krishna's form, Krishna's fighting. Krishna is sitting on the chariot of Arjuna. If you read Krishna book always, some of his pastimes will immediately appear in my brain. Immediately, as soon as you chant Hare Krishna. That is required, smaranam, automatically. As soon as you chant Hare Krishna. If you mechanically chant, thinking of something nonsense, then it will be useless. Long pause. It will take time. But if there is immediate remembrance of Krishna, we are hearing about Krishna, so many things, reading about Krishna, why not remembrance? That means inattention. So here Prabhupada is defining inattentive chanting. Inattentive chanting, you're chanting, but you're not remembering Krishna. That means deficient in Krishna consciousness. We should immediately, as soon as we chant Hare Krishna, immediately, at least we should remember the picture that Krishna is so kind that he has become a chariot driver of his devotee Arjuna, and he is giving his instruction Bhagavad Gita. Or Krishna is playing in the forest along with his cowherd boys' friends, eating very nicely on the bank of the Yamuna. And some demon came and he's killing. And the boys are, I mean to say, encouraging him with claps. This enjoyment is going on. What is the difficulty in remembering Krishna? What for this Krishna book is there? You read it and remember it. That will keep you in Krishna consciousness. So again, in the seminar today, we talked about the 5 stages of meditation. And that goes on especially during our japa time and our Gayatri time, although we should be having practical meditation throughout our life. All right. Are we good now?
That's it. Thank you very much. All glories to you. All glories to Sri Prabhupada.
Oh, glorious to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.